Hello everybody and welcome back to Insider's Guide. Today we're going to update and expand upon the second ever Insider's Guide, discussing the one and only Keystone. With a big expansion and old areas we need to expand on, this video will delve into everything that we didn't cover in the original videos. Of course, that means you'll want to watch the original two before this so you understand what I'm playing off of. So with that, let's amend an Insider's Guide to Ski Resorts, Keystone. We're going to start over on the Mountain House side of the mountain. In the first two parts of this episode, I completely neglected talking about these three blacks, so we'll discuss them briefly. Richter is an absolutely fantastic cruiser, while Go Devil typically has moguls. Since they're way out on the boundary, they're typically nice and empty, but beware that lower Richter is often closed for race training, forcing you onto Go Devil, so be prepared to ski moguls. Last Hoot is groomed often enough not to get moguls, but is the single iciest run in the resort. Yes, more so than Mozart, so I recommend just avoiding it. Now let's jump over to the River Run side. Coming down everything that flows into Spring Dipper and this gondola midstation area, you'll be shuttled toward this black, the Edge. The Edge is groomed and is far from the hardest black, but is a major thoroughfare and as such gets quite busy and icy. To bypass this, you can continue past the entrance for less than 25 yards and take a right onto Beggar. While it is narrower, it is significantly less busy, but is somewhat steep for a blue. If in doubt, heading towards Jaybird is never a bad option. In the first part of the Keystone episode, I generalized that the blues on the front side are groomed. While this is mostly true, Gassy Thompson, Bachelor, and Santa Fe, along with some of these smaller cuts like Bobtail, are left ungroomed, making them excellent places for lower level moguls. Wild Irishman isn't groomed each night, so while it isn't moguls, it gets pretty icy in spots. I'm not sure why Upper Frenchman is a black, as it's no steeper than the rest of it and is groomed. Also on the front side are some of the more challenging trails at Keystone, in places you'd never expect. Marked here is the Idabel Black, which has some serious drop-ins and is exceedingly narrow. Couple that with poor snow quality, and in my book, it's a lower level double black, not a single black. Unmarked on the trail map is the Saints John Trail, which is similar to Idabel, but with a pretty serious cliff in its top section. It's tucked between Irishman and Frenchman here, with lots of access points on both runs. Both of these trails are lift lines for old removed lifts, hence the nature of them. The most technical run on the front side is Wild Irishman Cliffs, between Upper Frenchman and Upper Irishman. As its name implies, it's cliffs, and the further skiers right you go, the harder it gets. You can avoid the cliffs entirely if you stay along the left side tree line. It is signed in person and not too hard to find. Our final thing to note for the front side is that the intersection of Orphant Boy and Jaybird here is at a very weird angle, and it makes it difficult for anyone on either run to see people on the other. Take this intersection with caution, and Jaybird skiers, beware that most Orphant Boy skiers will be merging on with you, as the lower half of Orphant Boy is ungroomed. Also, to have the shortest wait possible at Montezuma, get some speed and go to the maze on the skier's right, looker's left side of the lift here. In the original episode, I discussed two exceptionally busy and dangerous trails, those being Schoolmarm and Mozart. However, since the addition of the Bergman lift, which we'll discuss in a minute, Lower Prospector has become the third trail to add to that list. As the run out from the Bergman terrain and Mozart, it gets exceptionally busy, so I try to avoid it and recommend you do the same. On North Peak, I mistakenly stated that all of the blacks are mogul runs, when in reality, Starfire is almost always groomed. The same can be said for Diamondback, over under Ruby here. Within the Santiago pod, I'd like to elaborate by adding that these runs are extremely taxing without escape routes, so make sure you're ready before you take them on. My personal favorite is Ambush, which has a nice sustained fall line and well-developed moguls, while I'm not a huge fan of Geronimo, as its upper section has a tendency to be pretty rocky. I don't want to elaborate on the Windows terrain too much, but I'd just like to add that this terrain is truly out there, with lots of unmarked natural obstacles, a super steep pitch, and no easy way down. You can traverse the whole way to the wildcard and crap game area. If you want to hike, stay on the road when you see the traverse, and you can access this upper windows. These are the longest and least frequently skied lines here. This middle area here has some cliffs and a short chute right underneath the outpost gondola. This area is definitely the most technical, and the only section deserving of the double black designation. Otherwise, it's fairly standard tree skiing, just steeper than other areas at Keystone. These first couple lines especially are short, but also quite easy. no harder than the Outback lines. One area I will elaborate a lot more on, however, is the Outback. I seem to recall touching on this in Part B, but the Outback is almost always the least busy terrain area and lift at Keystone, so on busy days, this is the place to be. I erroneously marked all 4 blues as groomers in Part B. Elk Run is pretty consistently groomed, and Porcupine gets groomed some as well. Oh Bob is a fairly easy mogul run, but be careful not to miss this little cutoff or you'll end up on the significantly steeper Wildcat mogul field. Bighorn is a weird one, alternating between small moguls and grooming once or twice a week. Check the grooming report before you go, and you can bail onto Porcupine if you look down it and decide against it. I'll link the webpage where you can find the grooming report below. I also said that all of the blacks to the sides are mogul runs, which isn't entirely true. Timberwolf, Bushwhacker, and Badger start in the trees, but then open up into mogul fields. The Grizz is one of the easier but more popular tree runs in the Outback, so it isn't my favorite. It's got fairly spaced trees, leading to some weird moguls in the trees action. Badger and the Grizz drop you onto Coyote Caper, which is a narrow traverse, which I'm also not a fan of. You can't cut across to Anticipation until all the way down by the lift because of a creek in between the 2 runs. Over on the other side, Wolverine and Wildfire are relatively similar to the Grizz. Pika Glades are a bit more tight, and there's some good easier level tree skiing if you just duck between the blues. South Bowl trees on the looker's right side of the pod and Wolf Den on the other side can be accessed without hiking, through gates immediately off the lift. Up above, you've got these bowls that are accessed by a fairly easy hike. These bowls are far from the hardest terrain around, but they're great to catch some powder. I personally don't find them worth it, but I know they're popular among snowboarders. Just be aware that a vast majority of your run will be in the trees because Colorado's tree line is exceptionally high. You'll get your couple hundred yards of open space, then have to dodge trees the whole way back down. This principle applies for South, North, and Erickson bowls. The latter of those, Erickson, is easier accessed via a short hike from the Bergman Express, which is our next talking point. The Bergman Express serves all of this green and blue bowl terrain, which is some of the only terrain of this type and ability level you can find anywhere. As such, on good weather days, this terrain is exceedingly popular and the lift can accumulate some solid lines. I have found that the maze over on the skier's right, looker's left side here, tends to be quicker. Of course, the high altitude of Bergman makes it extremely susceptible to weather holds and closures, and it's no fun on low contrast days. For beginners getting to Bergman, I implore you to take the Outpost Gondola. You will hate your life if you try Mozart. For everyone else, you'll need to come up Santiago or way back. Thorn and Miners, which runs from the gondola to the Bergman pod in this direction, are pretty flat but also super short. 10 Mile to Quandary is the primary green trail in the pod and actually isn't as busy as one might expect. It's my favorite green at Keystone. On the opposite side of the bowl, you've got Wichita, which is a fairly easy blue groomer. However, it drops you into Jane's Journey, which is this awful, icy side hill traverse. I hate this side of the bowl and try to always come down under the lift rather than on that runout. Geneva gets some pretty terrible snow, so I stay away from it as well. Sometimes they groom Torreys, which runs right between 2 large sets of snow fences. The rest of this terrain from Grays to Ptarmigan is a big, open, mellow area to play in. I would recommend, rather than going down directly under the lift, to head down Quandary 100 yards or so before dropping in, to avoid some pretty exposed, windswept bare spots. Buffalo and Ute are more traditional tree cut runs that can be a nice change of pace. As touched on earlier, Lower Prospector isn't the greatest, so to avoid that, you can continue down Quandary and ride back across the Outpost Gondola. If you hike a little bit, or use one of the gates off of Quandary, you'll be in the Erickson Bowl. This area is really good except for Silver Heels, which gets pretty busy and scraped off. I would recommend skipping this gate right off the lift here and either hiking up to this one or skiing down to this one. The Erickson Bowl takes you to Outback and Wayback, the latter of which you'll have to ride up in order to lap the Erickson Bowl via the Bergman lift. On the other side is the Independence Bowl, which can often be one of the most isolated areas at Keystone due to the required hike out. This area doesn't have a ton of trees, only in the bottom quarter or so this is the truest bowl skiing you can get at Keystone. Alright, that seems to sufficiently wrap up Keystone. Now go check out another episode of Insider's Guide, breaking down other fine resorts around Colorado and the rest of the world. As always, please leave any questions down below. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please consider subscribing to help support this stream. Thank you all so much for watching. All my love, I'm out.